What's up, all my plant lovers? Devin is here, and today I wanted to talk about one of my favorite succulent plants that I've been growing as a house plant here in my Zone 6B garden in eastern Pennsylvania. And that would be this beautiful Senecio Blue. Senecio mandraliscae, Blue Chalksticks. I fell in love with this plant when I was living out in Bogota, Colombia. Over there, I saw it growing outside as a mixed bedding plant, also in mixed containers, and I thought it was super cool. Then I was visiting my little sister in Oceanside, California, and found that they use this as a wonderful ground cover out there, specifically, well, because it's beautiful, but also because it is a fire retardant plant. It's a super drought tolerant succulent that holds lots of wonderful moisture inside its foliage. But in this video, I wanted to go through how to care for this if you live in a temperate climate region like I do, where you have to grow them in containers like this. So to begin with, this is a plant, it really only grows around 12 to 18 inches tall, and will max out, this is pretty much a maxed size of a single plant over the course of a few years. However, if you do live where it stays warm year round and you're growing it as a ground cover, they will definitely spread, because as they grow and mature, they will root into the ground as these stems grow along the ground, which is really cool. It also makes them very, very easy to propagate, which is what I love, and we'll talk about propagating this in a little bit. In terms of growing this in a container, it is essential to grow this outdoors during the summertime. As long as the nighttime temperatures are above around 45 degrees, it should be outside. Now you're gonna get the best coloration when it's grown in the full sun. However, it will definitely grow in a half day, early morning sun or late afternoon sun situation. And then once those nights start to dip below that 45-degree threshold, you wanna bring them back inside. And the best areas to place these succulents inside is either by a very bright sunny window, southern, western exposed is best, or under a grow light. I do both, and I find that they both work. Now, as these grow outside in the summertime, they do produce these little aster-like flowers that are a whitish, yellowish color. I always remove them right away. They're very dull, they're quite boring, and I actually think they make the plant look a little bit unkempt and a little bit ugly, so I can remove them, and that also helps the plant to re-establish where it's giving its energy, i.e. into making more beautiful blue foliage, which is what this plant is all about, if you ask me. Now, in terms of the size of a container, like most succulents, you want to make sure that these have a chance to really get root bound during that summertime outside. We want to have the roots totally filling out this pot so that when you water it, the plant will uptake the water that it's needed, and there really is no excess precipitation that could cause any sort of rot. I like a nice mix of 50% any sort of potting mix and 50% perlite. That creates the best sort of drainage that these roots really need to thrive. Remember, they need really great airflow because they are succulents, and they need to be able to dry out very, very quickly. So a small pot with a great draining soil is a requirement. That being said, this is a super drought tolerant plant, which is why I love growing it as a container. I hate having to be tied to the hose every single morning. So this is a plant that I loved because I would water it about once a week during the summertime. You can still go on vacation, come back, and your plant's gonna be fine. Your tomatoes, your coleus, your petunias, none of those plants could ever handle a week in the summertime without precipitation. These ones can. So I tend to water them about once or twice a week during the summer, and then in the wintertime about once every 2 weeks. But when I do water it in the wintertime, I definitely just give it a nice 8 ounces or so of water. In the summertime, I will certainly give it a nice flush of water and allowing the water to flow through the bottom of your container, because your containers definitely need to have holes in their containers for these succulents to be happy. I also do fertilize them in the summertime about once a month. In the wintertime, I don't fertilize them at all. So kind of between those daylight savings months, November to March, no fertilizer. Now, one thing that you'll note is as the stems start to grow longer and longer, the lowermost fleshy foliage will tend to dry out, and you should remove that as needed. I tend to do this about once a month to just keep my plant nice and clean. I'll normally just rub my fingers up and down the stems, and that will remove any of those old foliage that is kind of brown and dried out. And you want to do your best not to leave any of it on the soil if possible. One of my favorite things about this plant is how it does have a very nice upright growth habit, but then it does start to overflow as those stems get longer and longer. That is why I recommend giving them a nice little cut back as needed. You can really do this at any time of the year. So whenever you do see stems are just a little bit too long with not much foliage on it, you can absolutely go and just cut them back. And because this is such a wonderful succulent, we don't throw this away, we use this to propagate. Now most of us know that when we're propagating plants, it's all about those leaf nodes. The leaf nodes are where the roots will come out of during that propagation process. However, with succulents, it is just a little bit different because the biology of a succulent plant is different from, say, a philodendron. Instead of having leaf nodes, what they have are called areolas, and that is where the succulent foliage actually attaches to those main stems. And you can see all along this stem are all of these little areolas. Now these are all of the growth points where our roots will come out of. Now if you have a nice long piece like this that's about 12 inches, this is going to be probably too long to propagate in and of itself. So what you can do is you can just go ahead and take it, give it a little cut, just like that. And now we have two pieces of stem that we can propagate. And you can do this as many times as you want, really never going smaller than about 4 inches in height when you are propagating. Just ensure that you keep the right side up and the bottom side down, because that is going to be essential to having a propagation success. And the good news is that wherever you cut is not only going to produce new growth, it will generally tend to branch out from that area, creating an even denser appeal at the base where you're cutting it off of. So that's a really good thing to note. All right, so now that you have all of your nice fresh cuttings, I like to take a nice little 4-inch container. I always pre-moisten my soil because I find that that is best. Now we're gonna be propagating this using a heating pad. If you are on my channel right now, that means you're definitely interested in plants. And if you're interested in plants, spend $15, get yourself a heating pad, because they will make all of your propagations much more successful, and it will save you tons of time, because without a heating pad, you would definitely want to wait maybe 2 weeks for these to cure over so that they do not rot in that process of propagation. However, with the heating pad, you can skip that entire curing process and take your cuttings and put them right into soil onto the heating pad, and you will have success. That is huge. Now from here, I usually like to take this little spoon I got, and I'm gonna open a nice little well all the way to the very bottom of that container. And I'm gonna stick my little propagations all the way down there till that touch the base of my container. You forget which way was up, which way is down. Just look at those little areolas, those leaf nodes, and you'll notice that they all point in the same direction. Up is the same on all of them. So you just take a look at one of your cuttings with the foliage, and you ensure that those areolas are all facing in that same direction. All right, so now that we have our propagation material all potted up, we're gonna add it into our propagation station. Check out that video if you are looking to create your own propagation station for about like 50 bucks. That's how much this whole setup cost. And it is what I use for all my props. All right, so that's all for now. I'm gonna give this maybe a month or so, and then we'll revisit it and see how the cuttings have developed. All right, so it's been about 6 weeks since we took our propagations of our Senecio Blue, and you can see that there is new growth points coming out of every piece of stem that we propagated. That is your cue that it was a success. If you are curious if your propagation has started to root, just look for new, fresh growth. That means, yes, new roots have grown. So if you're looking for a cool blue succulent to add to your garden, consider Senecio Blue. It is a gem of a plant, and its blue foliage cannot be matched. And if you are looking for a video showing you how to create a nice, cheap, fast, inexpensive propagation station just like this one, go check that video out. And consider subscribing to my page, Plant Vibrations. And don't forget, give this video a like if you did enjoy learning a little bit more about how to grow and care for Senecio Blue. Anyways, thank you guys for joining me here on Plant Vibrations. I'll catch you soon. Ciao.